Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm with the terrific Carl Goldhagen. Carl is going to be in the Marvelous and Unusual show from now through July 16th. Carl, would you mind introducing us to your piece?
Well, this painting is called Ghosted, and I think I chose that title partially because it's a word that's in our contemporary language,
Yeah.
Meaning things that it didn't used to mean.
Yeah.
Ghosting, in terms of relationships, but and then the ghost ship is clearly, so it's a kind of a pun in a way, I suppose. But I often find that oddly, lately, sometimes I come up with the title before I even get the painting made.
Ah, that's interesting.
And I think in this case, I'm not sure if that's true for this particular one, but it could conceivably be true that I thought of that.
Yeah.
When I started some pencil drawings of it initially, some graphite. I do a lot of graphite drawings, and that was sort of like I was sort of working out the way I was going to deal with it. This is the second of two ship paintings that I've done. Earlier one that I did a few years back, and that one was a wrecked ship too, but it still had all its panels in place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And this one is more destroyed, and that one was called Ship of State.
Oh, okay, yeah. So do ships have a particular meaning for you, or?
Well, it really came, not so much. Ships not in a particular way. Just I do love big mechanical objects.
Yeah.
And I used to make a lot of photographs of big mechanical buildings and things. I think that the earlier ship painting, Ship of State, was definitely a title I came up with before or right immediately as soon as I started the picture. I've been hearing in the news, the concept of the ship of state, government, and how difficult it is to steer the ship of state. So that's a term that's used for government. And I made a kind of like this one, quite a vertical ship, not as long as you'd expect, kind of clunky and vertical.
Yeah.
And it had a lot of panels all bent up and everything, tangled up. And that one was, I called it Ship of State because I was concerned about this state of.
Well, why ever would you?
I wonder why. Anyway, and that was painted in 17, so that makes a certain kind of sense without me going into it. And then this one, since it's even more destroyed, and of course the comical thing, of course, is how could anything float with that many holes in it?
Yeah, exactly. And yet it's still here.
Yeah, actually, I did another painting that had a boat in it, a ship in it, sort of, but it was a Noah's Ark image. So,
oh, okay,
So I've done 3, and I say it doesn't mean that much, but obviously it does.
You do 4, you become the boat painter.
Yeah, well,
This is so interesting because, first of all, it's not an image we see typically. I love the reflective quality that this looks almost like. It was interesting earlier. You said you used to do large photographs, and there is an almost surreal photograph aspect to this. Yeah. But one of the things that really drew my eyes to it originally was the way that you're working with the grid and a manipulated grid throughout. Was it your intention to draw our eye to a grid as well? Were you thinking on that?
I actually think about that a lot because I've done a lot of these sort of cutaway house paintings and drawings. My website has a lot of those, and I've discussed it before in terms of its being a kind of a framing grid idea. And I just saw the Guston show in DC, and even his abstract period, where he painted where the very scumbly paintings he did in his mid-career before he started the late work that we're all more familiar with. You'll see him painting this way and painting this way.
Yeah.
Even though it's all rough. That grid.
So do you think of it more as mark making?
No, I think it more of framing. And I think in his case, I think he was probably, in his head, he probably had Mondrian's plus minus paintings in his head.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's more about reframing in a sense, like structuring the frame, which would be more of a relationship to Giacometti, who's a big guy for me too. Giacometti is a big guy for me.
That's
So-
awesome.
So you can almost see it a little bit in the way, I do it. You know?
It's funny how when artists bring out like their inspiration, how when you look at it, then you can be like, oh my gosh, yes, I totally see that. But you might not think of it on your own unless it's really obvious. Like if you're inspired by Cy Twombly, I'm probably going to get that one because
Yeah, that's going to show.
Yeah, that was going to show. But it's interesting how artists collect other work into what they are using to structure their work.
You go into the studio and you got all these friends with you,
Yeah.
They might be 500 years old, but they're your friends and they're helping you out,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know why you sort of think about it in terms of mark making, but I really think it's much more, structural.
I agree. And one of the things that I think is...
I even painted the tips of these like little girders,
Well, yeah, and the thing is that I
Ideas.
think we have a tendency when we think of a grid to think flat.
Yeah.
But a grid is actually a frame, and framing is dimensional.
Yeah.
And so this is very interesting because of the way you've curved and given different perspective to this thing, this grid that we think of as flat.
And I distort the perspective like crazy.
Yes.
I mess with it like it's like comedy, I like to twist it all over the place.
Well, and because it gives you a new vantage point
Yeah.
at which to look at things.
Right. I mean, Cubism was always about, seeing things from more than one point of view. So in a sense, it was a restructuring of the whole idea of how to show dimension. Right?
Well, and also because we think of the flat picture plane as showing the most realistic view of humanity, but actually when we're interacting in real life, we're seeing all dimensions all at once. Whereas when you're working with perspective on a piece, you're actually attempting to show something in 2D that only exists in 3, 4, and 5D.
Well, in real experience, when you're in the real world, everybody thinks they see this picture of the world. A picture is like what you see. It isn't like what you see at all, because when you see, like I'm looking at you, I see something out of the corner of my eye, I might flick my eyes over, and I think I'm seeing you in that at the same time, but I'm not, because if I look at that, I'm not seeing you.
No.
I just see you a little.
Yeah.
So you stitch the world together in experience.
Yeah.
So when you make a painting or a photograph, you're locking it down.
Yeah, you're choosing which perspective.
And so everything's going to be in the picture, even though you can never really see it all at once.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also think about when I'm thinking about perception is, of course, color. Because if somebody asked you, like, what color is the sky, you'd say blue. And that is not always true. And it's not even true when it looks blue to you. So I find color very interesting because if I looked at this piece, I would say a blue, a blue-green, a deeper blue, a lot of gray, some brown, but it's a myriad of colors that you can only actually see when you're up close. Like you have a ruddling color here, and the way that you're using the different whites for highlighting. When you approach a piece, how are you thinking about color?
Oh man, well this one is low-key color.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a painting.
It's subtle.
Yeah, but some of mine are very bright.
Yeah.
The
other piece, La Toilette, which is also in the show, and I'll put in a little pop-up right here. But it is very bright.
Yeah, it's very bright. And like I just finished a painting of a car called American Car. That's like a sort of like a psychotic SUV. I mean, it's nuts. And the entire thing is just wrinkled. It's just bent up. But anyway, I was going to paint it in gray like one of these deals. I said, everybody's car is gray. I'm going to paint it. I painted it in orange. So it's an orange painting. It's an orange SUV. So I mean, I think with this, I was thinking a lot about rust. The red in the front, it's rust.
Yeah.
And then the other ship, it was rusty too.
Yeah.
I also painted a big metal wall that was rusty, made out of a wall that goes off into the distance with panels all bent
We
up.
were talking earlier to someone about how we think of all of these things as decay, and they kind of are, but they're also part of our organic experience that illustrate time. And
The time thing is a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that word I want? Thank you. That's the word I want. It's entropic. It's and that interests me. I mean, and also it's funnier.
Yeah, your work has a great sense of humor.
It's funnier, and I really want them to be, funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're funny and they have a very unusual perspective, which I think is great. Which is when we first saw your work, we were like, yes, we must have him at this marvelous and unusual show.
Yeah, it definitely fits the idea.
So.
Yeah, and then I want them to be funny.
Yeah, and they're also very. We talk about this idea of with actually Brian Hallis, who you know, about this idea of television versus cinema. And television is largely the face and focuses on a singular object at a time, whereas cinema focuses on a larger, more dramatic thing that you absorb the whole screen all at once. And yet, if you went to each of the details, each area is working in combination with the others. And I feel like your work is very cinematic in that way.
I do. Yes, I agree. I don't know what to say about that.
So, but this is a beautiful is not the right word. This is an intriguing, lovely, structured, interesting, dynamic piece that even in its subtle color palette, it speaks so strongly. So,
Well, thanks. I tried. Some people have actually looked at it quickly, like on a screen or something, and thought it was a sculpture.
We thought it was we were trying to, we always look at the medium and stuff when we look at things, and we thought it might be a sculpture that you had taken a picture of, and then when we saw that it was a painting, we were like, this is lovely. So
Yeah, I mean, people have got mixed up. Of course, the perspective is completely goofed up. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
And it would be very difficult to, it would have to be a picture of a sculpture that had the same perspective. But this is gorgeous, and I'm so glad it's going to be in the show.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much for talking to us, and we hope that you will come see Carl's pieces in our Marvelous and Unusual show from now through July 16th. Thank you so much.
Thank you.